Thanks, Declan, for that really excellent example of how modeling can make a real impact in clinical medicine. So yes, what I want to do next is to spend a little bit of time telling you about our next steps. So as you've heard already from Alex Horsley, that initially the network BIOREME will focus on these three themes. Our aim is going to be to connect academics, clinicians, patient groups, and industry representatives through these network activities, and then provide pump prime funding for co-created projects, very much of the kind that Declan's described and Carl has described, and that incorporate these modeling, imaging, and experimental cross-cutting capabilities. We really want this network then to catalyze new partnerships, to drive and deliver larger research grant applications with patient involvement right from the outset, to raise public awareness, and through links with other networks, we want to be able to expand the network around and beyond these research themes, bringing in experts in clinical trial design, medical device design, and respiratory biology. So let me give you some more detail on the funding opportunities that will be available through BIOREME. So firstly, we are going to fund 3 one-year fellowships, with the first call opening in March this year. So please do look out for that call. We are going to fund small grants that support visits, conference attendance, and placements. And in any industry representatives are here today, if you have any interest in these sorts of things, please do get in touch, because it would be great to place, to co-create projects and to make these sorts of placements available. And the call for that is also going to be opening in March this year. We're going to provide feasibility funding for 4 projects, one a year, that will be co-developed at sandpit events. So please look out for more information about that in spring. We're going to start our sandpits around springtime, so look out for more information about that. And then we're going to fund summer internships for undergraduates, 4 per year in 2023 and 2024. So please look out for information for that in autumn of this year. So a little bit more information about the first fellowship, which we're going to, for which the call is going to open on 14th of March. This will provide funding to cover salary for an early career research for 1 year who has less than 3 year experience post PhD. They will be encouraged to develop their own research proposal with support from a mentor at a host institution based in the UK, but collaborators can be from anywhere in the world. The expectation is that the project will be co-developed with modeling expertise and clinicians or healthcare industry, and must align with one of our 3 research themes. So a little bit of information about the network events that are coming up. So our first one that we're really excited to be planning right now is a stakeholder engagement event facilitated by Asthma UK British Lung Foundation, and will be essentially consultation with patient groups. This is planned for summer 2022. And the idea is to really engage with patient groups right from the outset, so that we can build their voice and their views into research proposals that are co-developed along the way. We're going to be organizing regular webinars quarterly, which will be online. Speakers will align with our BIOREME research themes. First one is going to be on the 21st of March this year from Jessica Oakes at Northeastern University. So please look out for the announcement of that. As I've mentioned, we're going to be organizing grant development sandpits, 1 a year from autumn 22. And the idea of these sandpits is to develop ideas which will then mean that those ideas will then get funded through our feasibility funding. We've just submitted a proposal to the British Science Festival for activities to engage the public. That will be in September 2022. We're going to organize 2 study groups supported by the Knowledge Transfer Network, and those will be in 23 and 24. And finally, some conference meetings at the European Respiratory Society meeting and the Flow Volume Underworld in 2023 and 2025. So let me introduce the steering committee of the network to you. There's myself, there's Alex Horsley from the University of Manchester that you've just heard from, Salman Siddiqui from Imperial College London, Peter Robbins from Oxford, Declan Bates from Warwick, who you just heard from, Carl Whitfield from Nottingham and Manchester, who you've also heard from, Jim Wild from the University of Sheffield, and Nick Hill from the University of Glasgow, and Anne Canning, who is our project manager, who you saw right at the start from Nottingham. And I'd like to say that the network so far is already pretty extensive. It's good to see so many people involved. And we have an international advisory board who will be helping us with achieving our aims and objectives. So please do get involved. How do you do that? Well, join our network and sign up to our updates at the link here. If you registered for this event and ticked the box that said sign me up, you will get a welcome email soon after the event. Follow us on social media. Please do suggest any speakers for our quarterly webinars. That can be done at our website. Seem to have lost. Sorry. Please do participate in or support a sandpit or workshop event. And if you have any suggestions for events, please do get in touch with us at this email address. And in particular, we'd be very happy to hear from any industry representatives who have suggestions for our next stakeholder event that we want to involve industry in. So what we want is for this network to bring together people who have the expertise with patients who actually live with respiratory disease, so that we can develop better treatments, better diagnostic tools, and increase engagement. Very happy to take questions or comments, but what I will do before I do that is to thank Anne Canning and Carl Whitfield for the superb organization of this event and to make sure everything runs smoothly, and also our speakers today. And I will maybe stop at this slide so that if anybody has any specific questions about events, etc., then they've got a reminder there. So I will hand over to Alex now to run the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wonder, Carl, can you put up the gallery view so that everyone can be seen? Remove the spotlight.
I've removed the spotlight, I think.
Fantastic.
Unfortunately, yeah. I don't know if everyone can be seen by everyone. They have to do that themselves.
I can start sharing screen, then everyone can see.
Great. So thank you everyone for your talks there. This is an open Q&A, and we're happy to receive any questions from anyone about any aspect really of BIOREME, either the sort of principles of modelling or what the objectives of the network are. We've had one comment, I think, from ASPA UK BLF, who've indicated they're very very keen to be involved as we are, and that's one of the things that we are quite keen to focus on is actually bringing the patient voice. And I wonder, Bindi, is that something you would be happy to talk to just for a second about how we bring the patient voice into this?
Yes, thanks, Alex. So yes, our first engagement event that we're planning at the moment is with Asthma UK, British Lung Foundation, and the aim is to first engage with the patients through the development of some outreach material, and then at this engagement event, the idea is to really take account of patient views and sort of map out some priority areas by first explaining to them what the network is about, and then to gather their views over time from the event onwards through surveys and through other sandpits and so on, whereby any larger research proposal that we develop brings in the patient views relevant to the specific disease that is being considered. So that's some of the planning that is currently going on at the moment.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself there. That's great, thank you very much. So we've also had a comment from Samrina from the Medicines Discovery Catapult, who's asking what the eligibility for them to participate in BIOREME is. And I think I can probably answer this, but Bindi, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, we are open to a very, very wide range of stakeholders. Anybody who has an interest in treating, managing respiratory diseases is very welcome to join in. And what we'd encourage you to do in the first instance, obviously, is to follow BIOREME, to engage with the events, but there will be specific events around stakeholders. And I think, Bindi, you mentioned this as well, that we're particularly looking to engage pharma, so we can probably predict ourselves a number of ways in which lung modeling could improve trials and improve understanding of drug effects. But we very much like to co-develop those with pharma and to co-develop those with organizations like UK Catapult. Bindi, have I missed anything from that?
No, I think you've covered everything. Thanks.
We've also had a question from Lucy from the CF Trust. Says, are we particularly focused on any respiratory diseases? Indeed we are. So we are open to everything. My background's in CF. Salman, who unfortunately isn't here, is in asthma, but we have other members of BIOREME who are involved in other respiratory diseases too. And we have a very wide range of interests. Anything really that involves airflow into or out of the lungs, or blood flow into or out of the lungs, I think would be our starting point. Would anyone else like to broaden that?
I think you've summarized that really well, Alex.
Good. Okay, so there was another question. What's limiting the wide adaptation of mathematical models in clinical medicine? So that's a very good question. I wonder, Carl, is that something that you'd be able to just talk briefly about?
Yeah, I suppose it's a difficult question, really, but I guess it's a problem of being connected enough, I suppose, is one thing, and that's definitely something that BIOREME wants to address. You know, it's maybe just isn't quite enough connection between modelers and clinicians, and indeed even more so maybe patients and especially industry. So all of those groups maybe need to be more connected, but also I think, as Bindi said, sometimes we can generate understanding with models, but I guess it depends how integrated. These things can always be more integrated. And I think what's really hard is understanding exactly what the right problem is in order to integrate your model into a technology. I think that's more difficult.
No, that's very much the case. And Declan, you had a very clear clinical problem. How did you end up driving your model in that direction? How did you end up getting focused on that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just serendipitous, really. We were looking at COVID-19 in terms of mechanical ventilation, but we saw, that there was a lot of interest arising at the an earlier stage in terms of non-invasive respiratory support, and this whole area around PCILI was kind of exploding with controversy amongst clinicians. So it took actually a fair bit of work to modify the model, because spontaneous breathing is a very different mechanism than mechanical ventilation, when you have a patient who's fully sedated and all their natural respiratory drive is turned off. But I think what helped was that we had 20 years of papers and track record in terms of modeling patients with acute respiratory distress syndrome, and given that COVID-19 is a variation on that, we weren't starting from zero in terms of convincing clinicians that we knew something about what we were talking about. So I think this relates to the previous question as well. Validating models is another key issue that is probably a little bit underexplored. So engineers are obsessed with proving the validity of models, because often their technology depends on it. The classic example is aerospace engineering, where if your model is wrong, you can have fairly catastrophic consequences. So I think we probably need to pay a bit more attention to proving that our models are correct, proving their predictive capability, because at the end of the day, that's what clinicians want to see. They want to believe that the predictions made by our models are correct and would correspond to what would happen in real patients.
Good.
Can I just add that proving that, or the validation aspect, really does require quite a lot of linking together of different expertise, because you need the data, you need the access to the right experiments or the right trial data and so on. And so I think one of the big things about this network is to really facilitate that, bring that together. The other thing I would also say is that quite often we're very happy as a mathematician sitting, beavering away and working on our little exciting model, but we need to get it out there. So I think part of it is also communicating what we do to clinicians. And one of the things that we want to facilitate through some of our smaller funds is attendance at clinical conferences for people who do this sort of modeling, and get their work to the audiences that need to see it.
Yeah, very much. And Jim makes the point in the chat that embedding people with modeling insight in the clinical setting is important, and that's very true. And we've certainly seen this in Manchester, where our clinicians, when Carl has spoken about modeling, have appreciated new ways in which things can be understood and done. And someone else in the chat has made a similar point that clinical data is important, and in order to understand the models. So I've got a couple more questions I just want to finish with. Dr. Wolfram asks, could you expand how you're going to bring patients and researchers together beyond first idea developing event? And Guillaume also asks, related to this, if there's already a workshop or scientific meeting planned to bring different collaborators together. Bindi, I'm going to pass that to you.
So in answer to expand beyond a first idea developing event, I think the first event will be really to get some input from what we are calling expert patient groups. So patients who are already quite involved within Asthma UK BLF. And then we want to then expand what we learned from that to much wider patient groups. And that's mainly going to be done through surveys and other online events that sort of expands to these greater patient groups. But then when it comes to things like sandpits, where we're actually starting to develop grants, at that point we will also be bringing in patients, so that there is there's a timeline and time points throughout the development of ideas and grant, where we will constantly be garnering patient view. But of course, those things will be very specific to the grant that's being written. And so the patients involved will be specific to that disease to some aspect. So to some extent. So so that's kind of our plan. And of course, things will get developed and modified as we go along as we learn.
Great. And Anne, if people want to find out about events and keep on top of what's coming up, they should register. And I think everyone who's registered for today will keep the details and send out information when these events come up. We are on the hour now, so we're probably going to have to finish at that point. But thank you very much to all the speakers, obviously, and to all the attendees and everyone who's asked questions.